The Accidental Realtor. Sometimes success happens by accident. You're listening to the latest episode of The Accidental Realtor with Chuck Gallup and Steve Smith. I can't vouch for all the episodes, but this one's pretty good.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of The Accidental Realtor. I am your co-host, Chuck Gallup. My other co-host is Steve Smith, and he's here with me. We are excited. This is our first launch episode, so guarantee there will be some flub ups, some mistakes, some tweaking around, but we're going to have fun with this. We're really excited to bring you guys value. This is for realtors. This is for homeowners. This is for the general public that just wants to have a little fun, get some leadership tips, learn a little bit about real estate. And it's going to be an evolving podcast because it's really going to be driven by what our listeners want to hear. So I'm really excited to get going. Steve, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. Really excited to be here. Ditto on everything that Chuck just said.
Yeah. And Steve and I are old guys. We are, we've known each other 30 some years. We're old people. It's a miracle that we got here with the tech stuff. I mean, neither of us is great at it. So it's good entertainment. I am excited to do this. So that's what our podcast is about. I hope you guys love it. I just want to talk a little bit really about what's going on in this real estate market. Because it is complicated, and we'll talk about this a lot in future episodes, but our team covers Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Florida, and we are River Road Real Estate, and we'll talk about that a lot, but we cover those 3 markets, and they're very, very different markets, aren't they?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, you just take Florida is like almost the polar opposite of what Minnesota's been. Couldn't be any different.
Yeah. I mean, Florida, we talk about this a lot. It's I'm selling a condo right now. We're about to close Fort Myers Beach. 27 months inventory. Remember, it's 6 months to be an even market. 6 months is generally considered even. 27 months means it would take 27 months for everything to sell out. I've never, ever seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah, not a good time necessarily to be selling in Florida.
No.
Good time to buy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you are a buyer and you're looking, I don't think we're at the bottom yet, but I think you can also get some pretty good deals now. I think it'll actually get just a little better. What do you think about Minneapolis? How are we sitting there, Steve?
I think obviously compared to Florida, we're doing really good. It's slowed up a little bit here now that we're in July and as we're, fast approaching fall. I hate to say that, but I think we're 2.5, 3 months of inventory of properties, basically for Minneapolis, the Minneapolis area. Stark contrast from Florida.
Yeah. Everyone always asks, how's the market? That's their favorite question. How do you like being a realtor? And then how's the market? And how's the market's a complicated question because it has been the election, I think, affected what happened leading into January. And then interest rates have been stuck. Everyone's been expecting that they were going to unstick. And the Fed just announced no interest rate drop, which will affect the housing market. We're stuck in this sludge. 80% of homeowners are at a 4% or less interest rate, and there's no way they can sell and move up. They're going to move down. And so people are stuck. What's your take on it?
Well, I think we've been battling that mindset, that reality for the last couple of years. I think everyone's hoping that, the interest rates are going to come down, that the market's going to improve. But, other than the interest rates, I would say that the market is pretty good. And Chuck, as you know, and all the other realtors out there know that, there are some options for sellers that don't want to necessarily give up those low interest rates, right? I mean, some people have to move. They have no choice. And I guess the message I'd want to send to them is that it's not complete doomsday, right? And I think you and we have that mindset in that, we even though they're not going to cut the rates, it doesn't sound like anytime soon, we're holding out hope that they will at some point, right?
Yeah. Something's got to give. The affordability for houses is just not, especially with what's going on with insurance and other things. Affordability is just not what it was. And so people aren't moving. No one's buying houses. In stark contrast, and this isn't being braggadocious, but our team is rocking it right now. And I don't know why that is, but we have had some of the best months I've ever seen as a team leader. And I think some of the bigger teams are also doing extremely well. So in these little micro pockets of the Twin Cities, things are going great. Interesting to see what happens. If you're a student of the market, you got to follow all the news sources. You got to follow the financial news. You have to follow the housing news because it all just comes together into this mishmash of things, and what happens in one segment of it affects all the others.
Yep.
I love that stuff. I always say I'm a student of the market, but I'm pretty obsessed. Maybe it's sick. I don't know.
Well, I think the market only, it tells you so much. I think in our industry, Chuck, we've learned that there's a lot of agents, maybe even some teams out there that I think they're driven by the market. And I don't know, I think I'm still of the mindset that despite what we are told, despite what we sometimes see or even experience in the market, it doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities, or it doesn't mean that, that it has to be the doom and gloom that sometimes, the people out there try to paint.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good way to look at it. Well, we're going to pivot a little bit to the next section of our podcast. And we like to give a little home buying tip. And I think for our very first episode, it makes sense to hit the softball. So I'm just going to get preachy with all of you. Here's my biggest home buying tip I can give you. And maybe you'll get a slightly different take on it, because I always use this analogy that if you go out to look at a house and buy a house and you're not pre-approved, it is like getting in an airplane and not having pilot training. Yeah, you might be able to fly that plane, but it's really tough to take off and it's impossible to land safely. So I'm just amazed at how many home buyers will call us and say, I want to see this house today. Can I take a look? And we go, are you pre-approved? No. Do you know how much you can spend? No. Do you know what kind of mortgage you would have? Would it be FHA? I don't know. What's FHA? So these questions are just so important. And this is, like I said, the softball question. It's the number one thing that needs to be said to a new buyer. But I just can't fathom just going out and buying a house. This isn't buying a car. You need to know what you're getting yourself into.
No, very good point, Chuck. And a lot of buyers just seem to think that they don't want to be bothered with the process until they identify a home that they think they want to buy. And then oftentimes it's too late. And depending on the market, if there's other buyers interested at the same time they're submitting an offer because they have their pre-approval letter. And then our buyers lost out because now they're going through the process.
Yeah, and I see this a lot in the Florida market, especially where you need to know what kind of loan you have. They may not accept, they certainly aren't going to accept FHA. It's kind of rare. VA, forget it. Conventional, it's a challenge. You got to have maybe some portfolio stuff that is completely not Fannie, Freddie, traditional, maybe 30% down, far fewer restrictions because of all the condo associations that are such a mess right now. And we'll talk about Florida in a separate episode because that's a 3-hour episode in and of itself.
At some point, we're going to have to talk about the different kind of products that are out there, because I do think there's a general misunderstanding with the general public in terms of what is FHA, like you said, Chuck, VA, conventional. And just to your point, some places, some properties will not accept a certain type of property. Don't even mention the fact that if you're in competition with other people that have perhaps a better product than you do, that could actually have a buyer lose out on a property. So I think it's important that everyone's educated on what the different products mean for them.
Absolutely. I think people are so afraid of real estate agents and lenders thinking, I'm going to get another sales pitch. And hey, we're not car salesmen. We are advisors. We are going to help you do the best that you can in this market, get the perfect house for you at the least amount of money that is doable in the least amount of time. Whatever you are looking for, we do that. We're not here just to sell you a contract and be done. We'll talk about this at some point. We just had our client event yesterday. We had like 120 of our favorite clients get on a boat with us on the St. Croix and just have an evening cruise. That's about relationships, and that's about keeping relationships, building relationships. You don't see that from car salesmen. You see that from realtors. You see that from lenders. So don't be afraid of that, people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We're going to transition just a little bit. Normally we will have a guest, and we actually got a pretty exciting guest for our next episode. But I want to talk about how I got started. Everyone loves when they get to be a realtor who sold 5 houses, talking about, here's my story. I just want to tell you this is my story. It's very special. But I think you and I both have kind of a unique path to getting into real estate. And I want to talk about that because it's formed who we are, and it's formed what we've done. And you and I have been friends. I was doing the math today. I think it's 32 years.
I know, long time.
Yeah, 32 years. I look the exact same. Steve, I won't lie. You look so much older. Like, it's amazing that I've like maintained this gray hair. I've maintained it this whole time. Yeah, I don't know. I look the same, honestly.
You
Uh,
do. You look great, Chuck. Yeah, I've noticed no difference, no change.
I don't look a
Yeah.
day over 68, honestly, and I think that's really the key to my success in real estate. But you and I have a really similar path, and so I'll talk about our stories, our friendship, and kind of my path into real estate from that. And it really closely is entwined with your story because we've known each other so long. So I was grew up in Minnesota, as you didn't, but we ended up in Minnesota together. And my dad worked with Steve's mom at an insurance agency or insurance company, and Steve worked there too. And I was starting to get into police work of all things. And my dad was talking about his coworker who Steve's mom he worked with, and her son was also getting into law enforcement. And I think we were even competing for the same job at one point. We both worked at the same police department. We hadn't met yet. We were both civilians at this police department. And so we met and it just clicked. I mean, you and I have been through so much. People joke when we pull into a parking lot, we've usually got some version of matching cars. Actually, the Camaros, Steve had a blue Camaro. I had a red Camaro. I got mine after his. He started it. Audis we've had together. Yours is
Honda
nicer.
Accords.
Yeah. Yep. Yours is nicer. I mean, we've been friends throughout this whole thing. So we both went into police work. We both I did it for 25 years, if you include my unlicensed time. I think, Steve, you're right around the same 25 years. And Steve left law enforcement and found something that clicked, and it was real estate. And he and I were obviously friends. He was telling me how great real estate was. I'm like, yeah, okay, good luck, buddy. I don't sell crap. I'm not, no, you won't see me doing that. And I left law enforcement not long after Steve, and I really had no other options. And finally, I'm like, okay, Steve, I'm going to hear your pitch. What is real estate? I could not get a job in anything that my resume said I should do. So I did stand-up comedy after leaving law enforcement. I did for about full time for almost 2 years. And I made maybe $10,000 in those 2 years. That's not enough to live on. And finally, I'm like, Steve, all right, I'll hear your pitch. And Steve urged me to get into real estate. So I clicked on the button, took the class, and, off to the races. I learned not to be a secret agent once I started promoting myself. Oh my God, it took off. My first month of closings was December of 16. I had 4 closings that month. I'm like, oh, this works for me. Let's do this. So, I mean, that's how I got into it. And then, Steve, let's talk about how you got into it. And then we'll talk about how we formed as a team.
Yeah, no, I always like hearing your side of the story, Chuck. You mentioned that, as soon as I was done with law enforcement, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Unlike some people, I always had an interest in real estate, right? I'm like, the earning potential, the flexibility of the schedule, everything that you see on TV, it just kind of clicked with me. So I'm like, there's probably no better time in life for me to try this, right? Have a spouse who has an income that can kind of support the family while I'm trying to get started. Got a pension coming in, so that helps a little bit. But I had some misgivings, and kind of like you, Chuck, it was like, you mentioned your resume that you felt like you couldn't get a job that matched anything on your resume. I think you felt the same way about real estate. You're like, what is on my resume, right? That's going to make me succeed in real estate. But what I found out, what I told you, if you remember this, it's like, oh my goodness, in our former jobs in law enforcement, we were salespeople without even realizing it. Right. And I tell people that to this day, that if you're in law enforcement or any part of criminal justice and you're even halfway effective at your job, you have to wear different hats. You have to have that emotional intelligence. You have to be empathetic, sympathetic. You have to be counselor. You're talking to people constantly, telling them what's in their benefit, what's not their benefit. We're kind of that natural salesman. And I quickly found that out getting into it, which is why I was pleading with you to come into it, because I knew that you were going to kill it. But it was such a natural transition without even realizing that it would be, right, until we made that step. But would you not agree, Chuck? I mean, obviously you had some instant success almost, coming into it, and your skill set transferred over very well.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people this all the time. A few things. Law enforcement is being available 24/7, like the police radio. Your phone's always in your hand. It's dealing with difficult people, domestics. In real estate, you're dealing with difficult people, domestics between you and other realtors and your clients, and sometimes the clients between themselves. You're dealing with, in police work, writing search warrants and accurate reports. In real estate, you're doing the same thing. You just have to be dynamic. And the people skill set it translates directly. And I've always said, in law enforcement, the harder you work, the more trouble you're going to get in. You're going to get suspended. You're going to get fired. You're going to do whatever. You're going to make less money by working hard in police work. In real estate, that spirit leads to more money. The harder you work in real estate, the more money you're going to make. And it was instant realizing how much better the skill set, the extra little bits of being a realtor fit my personality and allowed me to thrive in an environment where I'd been so stifled. So yeah, that part's exciting.
Yeah.
I love that.
And here we are almost 10 years later.
Yeah. And it was probably, just about a year ago. You and I went out for a happy hour, as we often do. And I had been pitching. It was actually a running joke in our friendship. He said, "Are you going to pitch me on eXp Realty, which is our brokerage?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm done asking, man. No, I know I've been asking for 5 years to come over to eXp. I know you're going to come at some point, but I'm not going to put you." You go, "I think I actually want to look into this." And at that point, we decided to get you over to eXp Realty with your team, which was a very successful team at Keller Williams. And you joined, and it doesn't make sense for us not to partner up. So we very quickly rebranded as River Road Real Estate.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly that happened because you're right. I mean, for the longest time, just didn't want to hear it, right? Because a lot of people don't know this. In real estate, you're getting, if you have any level of success, you're getting sought after by lots of different real estate companies on a regular basis. And it can get a little tiresome. And despite us having the strong friendship, it was something I didn't want to hear. But I tell you, I think we all reach a point with where we're at, no matter where we're at, right? Where you're looking for new opportunity, new challenge, new growth. It all kind of plays a part. But there comes a time where I think inherently we all need a change. And I think that's what happened with you and I. And I'm not going to lie, we had some misgivings, me and the entire team. And I think in part it's because it was something new, right? You just don't know what this new venture is going to hold for you. But it has been an awesome ride this last, I think it's been 9 months now since we came over, 9-10 months.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, the growth has been exponential. And it's not just taking our two successful teams and putting them together and the numbers you would expect to be, okay, we should have about the same numbers. Something about putting these people together, there's just like an electric energy. Our team is so fun. We've got the best culture I've ever seen as a team leader. And our transactions are through the roof. Our production is through the roof. And this has it's exceeded all my expectations by far, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. So now the challenge is to, keep building on that, keep going forward, which I know we'll get into at the podcast too, but I always kind of look at you and I as basically two accomplished guys, even before real estate, that is, we're trying to make our mark, in real estate, make our mark with eXp, make our mark with our team, make our team the best it can be. So I just know we got a lot of really exciting stuff ahead of us.
Yeah. I am very excited to see what happens. Every turn we've taken in this has been growth, and we'll talk about this a lot. And I'm sorry, guys, you will hear about eXp Realty. We'll talk about that too. It's the platform that our team thrives under. But I think there's a lot to be said for this new model. And there are other brokerages, Real, LPT. I'm trying to think of one, Epic, that are entirely virtual. And eXp built the model, and these companies have made some tweaks and some changes that work for their agents. But I think there's a lot to be said about the model of being an entirely virtual company. You can have an office. People in our upline have offices. That's okay. I've had an office. It doesn't work for me and our team. This is really a great way to deliver real estate and save a lot of money as a team leader or a broker. So it's pretty cool. And, well, I just want to say thanks, man. Thanks for getting me into real estate. Thanks for joining my team. And thanks for being my friend, Steve.
Oh, shucks. Always make me blush.
Well, normally we're going to have a guest joining us. And I'm really excited for our second episode. We have a great, great guest. It's a teaser. Yes. And that episode's we're going to be recording soon, and you'll see it soon. But we don't have a guest today because this is our intro episode. But we're going to try and end every episode with a funny story. So I want to tell people about something that happened to me that it's partially funny. It's partially really, really sad, but I'll tell you the story. So I had a client. I was the realtor for the entire family. I met them through an online lead source. I sold a house she never expected me to sell. I helped them buy a house. They're so happy. They introduced me to their brother. Their brother loved me. I helped him buy a house, sell a house. And so I'd done like 4 or 5 transactions with them. I'd been to invited they're from another culture. I'd get invited to their family parties. I mean, it was a really fun relationship, but they're a very close family, very close knit. And we bought a house in St. Paul, and we were 4 days away from closing. And the person who introduced me to the whole family decided to Google the address for the house her brother was buying with me, and discovered that there had been a brutal decapitation murder in the house 6 months before we bought it, or it went on the market and we went under contract. I mean, I'm talking gruesome, head cut off. I mean, wow, that's a showstopper. My buyer said, "Hey, did you see this?" And I go, "No, I didn't. I don't normally Google the houses we're buying. I hadn't thought to even do that, to tell you the truth." He goes, "Someone was beheaded in the house. I'm not buying that." I go, "Totally get that." He goes, "Why wasn't this disclosed to me?" I go, I don't know. Let me check. I look, there's nothing in the seller's disclosures. So he was mad at me. He was mad at me for not disclosing it to him. I had no way of knowing. And I went to the other realtor who was selling it. It turns out they were also the owner. They bought it, they flipped it, they sold it. And it turns out they didn't know. But I had to get dragged through an ethics complaint. I had to get dragged through a complaint to the Department of Commerce. I had to go in front of the real estate board and defend myself. And they're like, "Yeah, you had no way, no." I mean, we actually had they have up to, I think, a month to give you findings. At the end of the day, they said, "You're fine." But when it all ended, the buyer decided that wasn't enough. He was still mad at me. So he got all of his friends to go on my Google and say what a horrible human being I was. And we actually had to put up a letter, like a cease and desist, saying, stop doing that. You can't do that. You've never worked with me. You can't say what a bad realtor I am. Yeah, that one was crazy. But you always hear about that in the disclosure issues. You must disclose a murder. Yes, I mean, that's a no-brainer. But I couldn't imagine it went that direction.
I remember you telling me that when it happened, and it's just crazy. It's got to stand out as just one of the very, very few examples that are like that have ever happened. And we joke that it's like, that's the funny story. It's like, it's hard to find, it's easier to find humor in that now than there certainly was at the time. But I think that just really paints the picture of just the dynamics of real estate, right? Almost like law enforcement. Every day, can be different. You never know what you're going to encounter. And Chuck, that was a perfect example. Who would have thought that? Came out of left field. And I tell you what, even though we're not even we're required to Google search homes, I think you probably Google search homes now with buyers.
Yeah.
I started doing that after you telling me that, because that was crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Would you and I, and we'll talk about this in a later episode, but you and I do house flipping. Would you ever buy a house where someone was decapitated inside?
That's a good question. It's easy for me, my knee-jerk reaction, and maybe it's because I'm desensitized as a former law enforcement officer. That stuff doesn't bother me quite as much anymore. Maybe, probably, but I can understand why the average person may not want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be like, all right, listen, I don't think I could buy a house where someone got decapitated. Oh, wait a minute, but that is a really nice tile bathroom. I mean, like, I've never seen a dual shower. I mean, they were decapitated in the bedroom. Yeah. That's like 30
but the renovations kind of outweigh the tragedy. Yeah.
I mean, look at the
sounds
carpet.
Morbid, but yeah.
Yeah, the super plush carpet. I could probably see past it. I mean, it's okay.
Well, and let's think about it. Not trying to take away from kind of the, trying to share this story, and we can kind of laugh about it now. But that's why they have disclosure in Minnesota regarding, any sort of murder or homicide, because understandably, some people do have issue with that.
Yeah.
And we completely understand that.
Yeah. And the other interesting part is, and Minnesota's a state where you don't have to disclose suicide or natural death. Some people are really freaked out by that, especially some cultures. And they're like, nope, there's evil spirits there. I can't do it. I'm like, I can see past evil spirits in a house where there wasn't a decapitation. That, I'm telling you right now, I'm buying that house tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, especially if we're buying it for a rental and we're not living in it.
Yeah. Not a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you all. This brings us to the end of our episode of The Accidental Realtor. And by the way, I should have said this at the outset. The reason we call this The Accidental Realtor is because no one woke up at the age of 5 and was playing realtor. They were playing cops and robbers and astronaut and army and dolls. No one wanted to be a realtor. And guess what? As you get older and things change, people like us just end up in real estate. And arguably, I think we're pretty successful. And it speaks to how realtors, no one planned on being here. Many of us landed here and we found some success. We're accidental realtors. Should have said that as the very first thing in the podcast. I'll remind people in episode 2. We're still learning, people. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our episode. I've been your host, Chuck Gollop. My co-host here,
Steve Smith.
there you go. You said that perfectly. Make sure to follow us on social media. We've got a Facebook page. accidentalrealtor.com is our website. And we look forward to bringing you some solid content each and every, I think we're doing it weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is. We look forward to bringing you some content. We're so excited to get this off and running. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
See you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to Accidental Realtor. Frankly, I can't believe you made it through the whole thing. Way to go. I'm your announcer, Rusty Gatenby. Chuck has me tied up and held hostage in his basement. No kidding. Please help me. See you next time.